Come on, when have I ever let you down? Those are Commander Cody's own words to Obi-Wan Kenobi, said with the casual confidence of a man who already knows the answer, not whispered in some quiet moment between friends, spoken like a fact, like gravity, like something so obvious it barely needed saying. The verbal shorthand of two men who'd stopped counting how many times they'd saved each other's lives. And then Order 66 came. Palpatine's hologram flickered to life. 3 words. And Clone Marshal Commander CC-2224, the same man who had just handed Kenobi back his lightsaber with something close to affection, turned to his gunners and said, "Blast him." An ATTE opened fire on the cliff face where his general was standing. Obi-Wan Kenobi fell into the sinkhole waters of Utapau, presumed dead by the man who had never once let him down until the moment it mattered most. But here's the thing. We are not here to retell Commander Cody's life story. That's been done. 12 campaigns narrated in sequence, Geonosis all the way to Utapau. And you scrolled past most of them because you already knew. You know the battles. You know the chronology. You didn't come back for a recap. We're here to ask the one question nobody's properly answered. Did Cody fight it? Was there a fraction of a second between receiving the order and giving the command where the real Cody, the one who earned the right to say, "When have I ever let you down?" tried to claw his way back to the surface? Or was he already gone the instant the signal hit the chip in his brain? That's what we're building today. Not a biography, a case. Every mission, every act of loyalty, every moment of trust between Cody and Kenobi entered into evidence as proof that the man who pulled that trigger was not the man who stood beside a Jedi for 3 years of war. To understand what was stolen, you have to understand what existed. CC-2224 was born, if that's even the right word for what happens on Kamino, as one of the first generation of clone troopers. Grown from Jango Fett's genetic template on a planet of endless oceans and sterile white corridors, where Kaminoan cloners like Nala Se treated the creation of human life with the detachment of factory supervisors overseeing a production quota. The Kaminoans engineered their clones on those platforms, identical men grown at an accelerated rate, bodies and minds shaped to specification, consciousness itself treated as a variable to be tuned, optimized, and controlled. They built these men to order, literally. Every strand of their genetic code was purpose-driven, every developmental benchmark calibrated for a war the clones themselves didn't choose. The Kaminoans gave CC-2224 a number, a rank, and a purpose. They also, though nobody knew it yet, gave him something else, a chip, buried deep in his brain during fetal development. A biological kill switch, disguised as a behavioral safeguard, dormant and patient, waiting for the day it would erase everything he'd become. But what the Kaminoans couldn't engineer, what no amount of genetic manipulation could predict or prevent, was this. CC-2224 gave himself a name. Cody. That act alone tells you something enormous about who this man was. In a system designed to produce identical, expendable soldiers, stamped out on Kaminoan production lines like droid parts with heartbeats, this man carved out an identity. He chose to be someone. He rose to Clone Marshal Commander, one of the highest ranks a clone could hold, and was given command of the 7th Sky Corps, which included the 212th Attack Battalion and its elite subunit, Ghost Company. He was strict, by the books, tactically brilliant, the kind of officer who saw the whole battlefield the way a chess player sees the whole board, not just the piece in front of him, but the 6 moves that come after. But never cold. There's a crucial difference between a soldier who follows orders because he can't imagine questioning them, and a soldier who follows orders because he's weighed the alternatives and chosen discipline. Cody was the second kind, every single time. And the system paired him with Jedi General Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's where the tragedy starts taking shape. Kenobi wasn't the kind of general who treated his clones like ammunition with legs. He learned their names. He respected their counsel. He relied on Cody not as a tool of war, but as a partner in it. Someone whose judgment he trusted enough to lean on when the situation turned sideways. Someone whose voice carried real weight in tactical discussions, not because regulations demanded it, but because Kenobi genuinely valued what Cody brought to the table. And their dynamic reflected it. Where Rex and Anakin had heat, two warriors who led from the front, who ran toward the explosion, Cody and Kenobi had something quieter. Cody was the steady hand behind the Jedi's boldness. Kenobi was the moral center that gave Cody's discipline meaning beyond the manual. Their partnership was strategic and emotional in equal measure, built over 3 years of shared fire and impossible odds, the kind of bond where a single look communicated more than most people manage in a paragraph. Cody responded to this, not with the blind obedience the Kaminoans had engineered into his DNA, but with something they never programmed at all: earned loyalty, the kind forged in mutual respect, in close calls and impossible missions, and the quiet moments between the gunfire where two men who technically shouldn't have been equals somehow became exactly that. That distinction is everything. It's the reason Order 66 isn't a story about obedience. It's a story about violation. So, let's enter the evidence. Not as a timeline, as a prosecution. Every mission is a piece of proof, submitted to an emotional jury, you. And the only question worth asking each time is simple. Does this sound like a man who would willingly betray the person he fought beside for 3 years? Or does this sound like one more reason the betrayal makes absolutely zero sense unless Cody was overridden by something stronger than his own will? Christophsis, 22 BBY. First year of the Clone Wars, when the conflict was still new enough that people thought it might end quickly. Depicted in the 2008 theatrical film and the episode The Hidden Enemy. What matters here isn't the battle itself, it's what Cody did during it. He and Captain Rex, working in tandem, uncovered a traitor in their own ranks. Sergeant Slick, a clone brother who'd been feeding intelligence to the Separatists, compromising Republic positions, getting his own people killed for reasons Cody couldn't fathom and refused to accept. Think about what that means for a second. At Christophsis, Cody was the one hunting betrayal. He was the one who refused to accept that a brother could turn against his own. And when the evidence proved otherwise, he was the one who helped bring Slick to justice, who did the ugly, necessary work of accountability because his moral compass demanded it, not because a Jedi ordered him to. Kenobi wasn't standing over his shoulder directing the investigation. This was Cody's initiative, his judgment, his belief that loyalty meant something real enough to be defended. The man who rooted out treachery on Christophsis is the same man you're supposed to believe willingly committed treachery on Utapau. The contradiction is staggering, unless you account for the chip. Rookies. Season 1, Episode 5. You know this one like an old friend. It's one of the episodes that taught people the Clone Wars wasn't a kids' show. Cody and Rex arrive at the Rishi Moon listening post for a routine inspection and walk straight into a nightmare. The station's been overrun by commando droids. The veteran crew is dead. The only survivors are a handful of terrified rookies who've never seen real combat, fresh out of Camino training, shaking. Kids, essentially, in armor that still looked too clean. And Cody doesn't bark orders at them from behind cover. He leads, takes scared, untested soldiers, and turns them into a functioning unit within minutes. Doesn't berate them for their fear, channels it, gives it direction, shows them that the space between frozen and fighting is smaller than they think. He fights alongside them in those corridors, like their lives matter as much as his own. Because to Cody, they do. Every clone life has value. Every brother counts. That wasn't Kaminoan programming. The Kaminoans built clones to be expendable. Cody decided they weren't. The rookies who survived that night, Echo and Fives, names that will become enormously significant before the story's done, owe their survival in part to the commander who showed up for a paperwork visit and stayed for a war. He didn't have to fight in those corridors. Could have pulled rank, called for reinforcements, waited it out. He chose to stay. He chose them. That's who CC-2224 was, when no chip was firing in his brain. Ryloth deepens the portrait. Innocence of Ryloth. Season 1. Cody leads Ghost Company on a ground assault to liberate the Twi'lek homeworld from Separatist occupation. The episode earns its title because the mission forces Cody and his men into direct, unavoidable contact with the civilian cost of war. Twi'lek villagers, including children, caught in the crossfire and deliberately used as living shields by Separatist droid forces. It's the kind of tactical nightmare that turns good soldiers into cold ones, because the math says ignore the civilians and complete the objective. The efficient move, the move the Kaminoans would have approved of, is to push through regardless. Acceptable losses. But Cody's response isn't the cold calculus of acceptable losses. He adapts. He protects. He alters Ghost Company's entire approach on the ground, making real-time tactical decisions that prioritize civilian lives, even when doing so complicates the mission, slows the advance, and puts his own men at greater risk. He and his troopers demonstrate something the Kaminoans never put in the specifications: compassion, moral reasoning, ethical judgment under fire, chosen behavior, not programmed behavior. Remember Ryloth when we get to Utapau, because what the inhibitor chip does is erase exactly this capacity. The soldier who protected children on Ryloth when the mission didn't demand it, and nobody would have blamed him for looking away. And the soldier who fired on his own general without a flicker of hesitation. Those cannot be the same decision-making mind. One of them was Cody. The other was the chip wearing his face. The Citadel arc, Season 3, spanning the Citadel, counterattack, and Citadel rescue, pushes trust beyond strategy and into something existential. 21 BBY, deep in the war's second year. The mission: infiltrate a separatist prison specifically designed to hold Jedi, rescue Jedi Master Even Peel, and extract critical hyperspace route intelligence before it falls into separatist hands. The Citadel wasn't some standard outpost with battle droids and a command center. It was a separatist prison specifically designed to hold Jedi and considered virtually impenetrable, a fortress engineered to kill Force users. Every hallway a trap, every corridor designed to neutralize the exact advantages a Jedi brings to combat. The whole place was built by someone who'd studied how Jedi fight, and then constructed a building to make fighting impossible. This is the kind of operation where a single failure in trust gets everyone killed. Every member of that team had to rely absolutely on every other. They were carbon frozen to avoid detection on entry, willingly sealed into slabs of carbonite, blind, vulnerable, helpless, trusting completely that the people around them would bring them back. Cody allowed himself to be frozen because Kenobi needed him there. Not because he was ordered. Because the mission required it, and the general he'd chosen to follow was walking into a death trap designed specifically to destroy people like him. Inside, the Citadel chewed through the team. Clone troopers died navigating the approaches. Even Peel's extraction went sideways almost immediately, turning a surgical rescue into a running firefight through corridors built to punish movement. And through all of it, Cody performed exactly as Kenobi expected, with competence, with courage, and with the kind of loyalty that cannot be manufactured by rank or regulation. It can only be earned. That kind of synchronization doesn't come from training manuals. It comes from years of learning someone's instincts until you can anticipate them in the dark. Would a man destined to betray his general volunteer for a suicide mission to save a Jedi he'd never met? Would a traitor in waiting allow himself to be frozen in carbonite beside the man he'd one day try to murder? Would he fight his way through a fortress built to kill the very people he's supposedly programmed to destroy? The questions answer themselves. Now, Umbara. And I need to be precise here, because you know these episodes intimately, and you'll catch any misstep. The Umbara arc. Darkness on Umbara, the General, Plan of Descent, Carnage of Krell, is primarily Captain Rex's story, not Cody's. The 212th Attack Battalion fought on Umbara alongside the 501st, and the 212th's presence on that shadow world is established, but the emotional core belongs to Rex, Fives, Jesse, and Hardcase, who discover that their temporary Jedi commander, Pong Krell, has been deliberately sending clones to their deaths. Cody isn't the protagonist of those episodes, but the thematic resonance hits like a sledgehammer, and it deserves to be swung. Because Umbara is Order 66 in reverse. On Umbara, a Jedi betrayed his clones, used them, manipulated them, treated their lives as worthless, expendable, beneath contempt. Krell orchestrated a fratricidal ambush, clones gunning down clones in the fog of Umbara's perpetual darkness. Each side convinced the other was the enemy, helmets ripped off too late, brothers recognizing brothers only after the trigger had already been pulled. The clones of Umbara were victims of a corrupt authority who exploited the chain of command to commit atrocity. Their obedience was weaponized against them by a man they were trained to trust. Sound familiar? When Order 66 arrives, the direction of betrayal flips, clones turning on Jedi instead of a Jedi turning on clones. But the mechanism is identical. A corrupt authority exploiting obedience to force good soldiers into unspeakable acts. Umbara proved clones could be weaponized against their will. Order 66 proved it on a galactic scale. And Cody, loyal, dependable, by-the-books Cody, was one of the weapons. If those missions are the evidence that Cody was a good man, then the Fives arc is the evidence that his goodness was always scheduled for deletion. Season 6. The Unknown. Conspiracy. Fugitive. Orders. 4 episodes that change everything retroactively, that reach back through 3 seasons of Clone Wars storytelling and poison every moment of brotherhood with the knowledge of what's coming. ARC Trooper Fives, one of those terrified rookies from the Rishi moon, the kid Cody helped turn into a soldier, now grown into one of the most capable fighters in the Republic Army, stumbles onto the truth about the inhibitor chips, and it kills him. It starts when Clone Trooper Tup suffers a premature chip activation during a battle and murders Jedi General Tiplar. Something cracks in Tup's brain, the chip misfiring, and a good soldier becomes a murderer in the space between one heartbeat and the next. No provocation, no reason, just the chip and a life extinguished. Fives won't let it go. He pulls at the thread until the whole conspiracy unravels in his hands. He discovers that every clone trooper in the Grand Army of the Republic has a biologically engineered chip implanted in their brain during development on Kamino. He discovers that these chips aren't behavioral safeguards, despite what Nala Se and the Kaminoan medical establishment claimed when pressed. They're organic control mechanisms, designed to override a clone's personality wholesale, suppress identity, obliterate free will, force absolute, unquestioning compliance with a specific set of contingency orders, the most catastrophic of which is Order 66. And he discovers the conspiracy runs straight to the top, to Supreme Chancellor Palpatine himself. The entire architecture, the clone army, the war, the chips, Kamino's role as the unsuspecting manufacturing arm of a galactic plot, is one enormous trap with a 3-year fuse, and the Kaminoans either didn't know or didn't care what they were building. When Fives corners Rex and Anakin Skywalker and begs them to understand, practically raving, desperate, knowing he sounds insane but unable to stop because the truth is too big and too terrible and someone has to listen, he's shot and killed. The truth dies with him, and the chips remain ticking inside millions of skulls across the galaxy. 2 things make this devastating beyond measure. First, the clones didn't know. Cody didn't know. He never consented to what was inside him, never had the slightest chance to resist something he couldn't detect, couldn't feel, couldn't suspect. Every act of loyalty, every mission alongside Kenobi, every moment of brotherhood, was building toward a betrayal he'd been biologically programmed to commit since before he opened his eyes on Kamino. He was a weapon aimed at his own general from the moment the Kaminoans decanted him, and nobody, not Kenobi, not the Jedi Council, not Cody himself, knew it. Second, the chips don't merely compel obedience, they rewrite who you are. Tup's premature activation transformed him completely. vacant, hostile, singular in purpose. That's not a soldier following an order he disagrees with. That's a person being erased. Identity, personality, moral compass, everything that made them them, and replaced by a directive. A biological puppet string pulled so hard it snaps the puppet. When Cody says blast him, understand what you're watching. You're not watching a man make a choice. You're watching a man be deleted. And Captain Rex is the proof. Rex, Cody's closest counterpart, the captain to his commander, the other half of the most iconic clone partnership in the franchise, had his inhibitor chip surgically removed by Ahsoka Tano during the Siege of Mandalore in the final episodes of the Clone Wars Season 7. Those final episodes broke people. When Order 66 hit, Rex fought the chip with everything in him. With the override still partially active during those agonizing moments before Ahsoka could complete the removal, Rex wept. He warned her. He told her to find Fives' report. His body was obeying. But Rex, the real Rex, was screaming from inside the override, clawing against the chip's rewiring with everything he had, because the woman standing in front of him was his friend, and he would rather die than let the chip take that from him. And when the chip came out, Rex was himself again. Instantly. Completely. Didn't serve the Empire. Didn't hunt Jedi. He lived. He hid. He grew old. Fast, the way all clones do. And eventually, when the crew of the Ghost found him in Star Wars Rebels, he joined the rebellion, fought the Empire that had tried to use him. An old soldier, older and heavier but unmistakably himself, who never stopped being exactly who he'd always been. Rex is what Cody could have been, the control experiment, the living proof of the thesis. Without the chip, a clone stayed loyal. Without the chip, a clone stayed good. Without the chip, the Brotherhood held. Cody never got his chip removed. Nobody saved him the way Ahsoka saved Rex. And so the man who never let Kenobi down was forced to become the man who tried to kill him. Not because he chose to, because choice was the one thing the Kaminoan chip took away. Now slow down. Take a breath. Because everything before this was building toward a single moment, and you deserve to feel its full weight. 19 BBY, the final days of the Clone Wars, Year 3, the year everything ends. Obi-Wan Kenobi has tracked General Grievous to the sinkhole planet of Utapau, and Commander Cody is at his side, as he has been for 3 years. The 212th Attack Battalion is deployed around the perimeter of Pau City, ready to engage Grievous's remaining droid forces on Kenobi's signal. And in the moments before Kenobi descends alone to confront the cyborg general, a suicidal gambit requiring every droid's attention fixed on the Jedi while the clones move into flanking position, there's an exchange. Cody has Kenobi's lightsaber. It's right there in Revenge of the Sith. The scene is small, easy to miss if you're not looking for it, devastating if you are. Cody hands the weapon back with a warmth that goes beyond any military regulation. I think you'll be needing this. Not a regulation handoff, not a salute and a sir. A friend making sure another friend has what he needs before walking into danger. You can almost hear the 3 years of war compressed into that sentence. Every firefight, every close call, every time one of them pulled the other out of something impossible. All of it distilled into 6 words and the return of a lightsaber. It is the last act of kindness Commander Cody will ever perform as himself. Kenobi descends, fights Grievous, wins. It's over. The head of the Separatist military is dead. The war should be ending. And while the dust is still settling, while Kenobi is climbing back up the cliff face, while Cody is presumably preparing to report a hard-won victory, Palpatine's hologram appears. Small, blue, flickering. The order is 3 words long. Execute Order 66. And Cody, the man who just returned a lightsaber with something like love, doesn't hesitate, doesn't flinch, doesn't close his eyes or clench his fist or show one single flicker of the man who was standing there 30 seconds ago. The moral compass that guided him through Christophsis and Ryloth and the Citadel doesn't register. The bond forged over 3 years of war doesn't surface. Nothing surfaces. He turns to the nearest ATTE gunner. Blast him. The cannon fires. The cliff face explodes. Obi-Wan Kenobi plummets into the sinkhole waters far below. Cody dispatches search teams because the chip demands confirmation of the kill. When a clone captain asks if they found Kenobi, the response is clinical. No one could have survived that fall. They're wrong. Kenobi survives. But Cody doesn't know that, and in the moment he gives the order, he doesn't care. He can't care. Cody isn't home anymore. Minutes. That's all the time between those two moments. Minutes between handing a man his weapon with care and ordering that man's execution without hesitation. Those two actions cannot coexist in the same conscious mind. They aren't a contradiction. They're evidence of two entirely different people occupying the same body at different points in time. The man who returned the lightsaber was Commander Cody. The man who said blast him was the chip. And the tragedy isn't that Cody betrayed Kenobi. The tragedy is that Cody was already gone before the shot was fired. So what happened to him? The answer depends on which version of Star Wars history you believe. All three deserve to be heard, because each carries a different weight and a different wound, and I'm not picking a winner. That's your call. In the Legends continuity, the old expanded universe, pre-Disney, Cody's story after Order 66 is bleak. Borders on body horror, honestly. He continued serving the Empire, and what the Empire did with its aging clone troopers went far beyond standard military service. The Phase Zero Dark Trooper program took battle-worn clones, soldiers whose accelerated aging was degrading their bodies, joints failing, reflexes slowing, the genetic expiration date Kamino built into them catching up fast, and converted them into cybernetic enforcers. The process was closer to butchery than medicine, failing organs ripped out and replaced with Imperial hardware, limbs augmented with mechanical grafts, the line between flesh and machine deliberately blurred until what was left wasn't quite a man and wasn't quite a droid, but something trapped horribly between the two. The walking dead of the Grand Army of the Republic, resurrected not as people, but as platforms. The 501st Campaign Journal from the original Star Wars Battlefront 2 in 2005 framed the clone to Imperial transition as seamless, even eager, because in that era of storytelling, the inhibitor chip didn't exist yet as a concept. Clones were soldiers who followed orders. Full stop. No chip, no override, no excuse, just loyalty to a system that never loved them back. Cody, in this version, simply faded into the machine, or was physically rebuilt as part of it. Used up, hollowed out, discarded when the Empire found something cheaper. Conscripted human recruits who didn't age out and didn't cost a Kaminoan fortune to produce. There's no recorded moment of doubt in the Legends version, no crisis of conscience, no redemption, just slow, grinding erasure, the darkest timeline. For years, the only one. The canon version is something else entirely, and it's the one most of you are invested in. Cody appears in the Bad Batch Season 2, in the episode The Solitary Clone. From his first scene, something inside him is cracking open. The inhibitor chip's effects have degraded over time. As they canonically do, the biological override wearing thin as weeks and months stretch on, and Cody is beginning to remember. To question. He's stationed alongside Clone Trooper Crosshair, deployed on a mission to a former separatist world, and the operation forces him to confront an ugly truth. The Empire isn't the Republic wearing new armor. The Republic's promises of liberation have curdled into occupation. The rhetoric of order masks the reality of subjugation, and the clones, his brothers, are the ones enforcing it. You can see it breaking him. The doubt in his posture, hesitation where certainty used to live. He questions whether what they're doing is right. He pushes back, carefully, in the way a career soldier pushes back, testing the walls of the institution that made him. And what he finds is that the walls don't bend. The Empire doesn't accommodate doubt, it punishes it. And then Cody goes AWOL, deserts the Empire, walks away from everything, rank, purpose, the only structure he's ever known. His fate after that moment is unknown, completely, deliberately unknown. The Bad Batch doesn't tell us where he went, doesn't show us what happened next. He simply vanishes into the galaxy, a ghost in stolen armor, which is either the cruelest cliffhanger in Star Wars animation or the most generous gift a storyteller can offer. The space to imagine something better for someone who deserved it. Then there's the third version. Not legends, not canon. Fan headcanon, built from speculation and love in equal measure. And it deserves a seat at this table, because the people who built it care about Cody as fiercely as anyone at Lucasfilm ever has. The theory goes like this. Cody, having regained his agency after the chip degraded, allied himself with the Kaminoans, who had their own mounting reasons to resist the Empire. The Bad Batch showed the Empire systematically dismantling Kamino's cloning operations, destroying the facilities, discarding the Kaminoan scientists who had built the clone army. The Kaminoans went from indispensable military partners to disposable contractors overnight. An entire civilization's economic and political leverage, their value to the galactic order, evaporated the moment the Empire decided clones were too expensive and too independent. They had motive. Cody had capability, tactical brilliance, and intimate knowledge of Imperial operations from the inside. The theory stitches them together. A discarded soldier and his discarded creators, finding common cause in defiance against the machine that used them both. The Kamino uprising from the original Battlefront 2 lends the idea a skeleton, and the canon hasn't confirmed or denied it. It just sits there, possible, waiting. And while we're in this territory, one thought that won't leave. What if Rebels had shown us Cody returning to Kamino? Rex got his arc in that series. Rex fought alongside the Ghost Crew, confronted the Empire, was allowed to be himself until the very end. Dave Filoni brought Rex back from the dead, essentially. But Cody? Left in the dark. The fan community hasn't stopped asking why. Hasn't stopped imagining a version of the story where Cody resurfaces on the ocean world where the Kaminoans made him. Not as their product this time, but as their ally. That hunger tells you something. People aren't done with Commander Cody. They refuse to be. But here's what stays with me, regardless of which version you choose. Legends, canon, headcanon. Pick your ending. It almost doesn't matter. Because the tragedy of Commander Cody isn't what happened after Order 66. The tragedy is that it happened at all. A man who hunted traitors on Christophsis because his own conscience demanded it. Who turned frightened rookies into soldiers on the Rishi moon because every clone life mattered to him. Who protected Twi'lek children on Ryloth when the mission didn't require it, and nobody would have blamed him for looking the other way. Who let himself be frozen in carbonite beside a Jedi he would have died for at the Citadel. Who served through 3 years of a war the Kaminoans built him for, but couldn't have predicted he'd find meaning in, and found it anyway. In the Brotherhood, in the mission, in the quiet trust of a general who called him by name instead of number. And then a chip, a small organic thing buried in his skull since before he drew his first breath on Kamino, fired. And every mission, every act of moral courage, every moment that proved who CC-2224 really was, got overwritten in an instant. His hands became weapons aimed at the person he trusted most in the galaxy. His voice gave the order his mind would never have chosen. And the man who said, "When have I ever let you down?" That man was gone. So many fallen brothers. And sometimes in war, it's hard to be the one that survives. But Cody didn't survive. Not really. The body walked around after Utapau, gave orders, served an empire, maybe eventually broke free and disappeared into the stars. Maybe was rebuilt into something that barely resembled a person. Maybe found the Kaminoans and fought back. But the man behind the number, the one who chose a name for himself, who chose loyalty over programming, who chose to be good in a system that never once asked him to be, That man died the instant the chip activated. He died loyal. He died good. He died without ever getting the chance to prove the betrayal wasn't his. We can't remove the chip. Can't go back. Can't give him what Rex got. That moment of freedom. That surgical second chance. That proof of who he'd always been underneath. But maybe the only thing we can still give Commander Cody is this. To remember who he actually was. Not the soldier who said, "Blast him." The soldier who meant it. Every single time. When he promised he'd never let you down. He meant it. The chip just didn't care. Subscribe for more stories like this.